Testing, testing, testing.
Okay, let's hope I don't fall down.
Testing, testing, testing.
Testing. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please come in and take a seat so we can see what we have for a quorum. If we have any newly registered voters in the hall, those of you who are newly registered and have only a purple card, would you please come down to the middle section and sit in the middle section in the first two rows? If you are a non-registered voter, if you would sit in the section to my left. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened was because the town has called a special town meeting for this evening, it required that the town clerk open up registration for new voters. So it may get a little confusing. We'll try to keep it straight for you. The newly registered voters will only be able to participate in the special town meeting. So we will open the continued annual town meeting having yellow cards. So everyone that is able to vote in the continued town meeting will vote with the yellow cards. Once we go into the special town meeting, then we will go to the purple cards. So registered voters may have two cards. You may have a yellow and a purple, which means you can participate in both meetings. Newly registered voters may only participate in the special town meeting, and they only have a purple card and will only be counted during the special town meeting. If the tellers would please come forward and take a count. Please hold up your yellow cards to be counted for the continuation of the annual town meeting. So yellow cards, if you have a yellow card, hold them up high. Keep them up until the tellers have counted and asked you to put them down. Yellow cards. In the front, section 128. On the right, 1313. In the center, 4848. And on my left, $29.29. First one was 28.
We can do all Passover.
28, 13, 48, 29, and 118. We have 118 voters in the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a quorum to open the meeting, so I am going to give my remarks and hope that by the time I get done, we will have the necessary 150 people in the hall to act on financial articles. Other than that, we can only act on articles that involve no money. Tonight's meeting is a continuation of the spring annual town meeting, and all of the meeting rules that were put into place on opening night of town meeting are still in effect. I want to quickly highlight the most important ones to refresh your memory. The duties of the moderator in the government of town meeting not specifically provided by law are determined by the rules of practice as prescribed in our charter by Robert's Rules of Order, the 75th edition, town meeting time, town meeting tradition, and those rules set forth by the moderator. Also, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 15, and Article 12 of the October 27th town meeting, and approved by the Attorney General, whenever a two-thirds vote is required by statute, such a vote may be declared by the moderator without a count and be recorded as such by the clerk upon declaration, provided, however, that if 7 or more voting members of town meeting doubt the vote, a counted vote will be taken. Now, town meeting does not come to an end until all the agenda items on the warrant have been decided either by approval, by being defeated, or no action deliberately taken. Now, once we get into the special town meeting, I'm going to try to take some articles as the consent agenda, and we should be able, if we stay on track, to finish, hopefully, if we get our quorum of 150. So I would ask for your indulgence that you stay for the entire night. Please try not to get up and leave. And when we start with a quorum, that's the quorum we have as a matter of record. If no one questions the quorum, that's the quorum we have. So even if there are only 2 voters in the hall, if we still have a quorum of 118 or 150, so long as no one questions that, we have on record the quorum of what we started for. So keep that in mind. Once we get going, I will ask that a motion be made by the Finance Committee, and then I will ask the proponent of the article to speak, and then I will come back and ask the Board of Selectmen for their vote and for the vote of the Finance Committee, and then we will open up the warrant articles for discussion and debate. I would ask that you come to the microphone if you wish to speak to an article. You state your name clearly. I ask that no more than 2 people stand at the microphone, and that's to keep the aisles open and safe. And I ask that you please stick to the subject matter at hand on the article that we are discussing. Please be respectful of one another. No one should be talking during any time that anyone is standing at the microphone to speak. Amendments may be offered, but amendments to amendments will not be accepted. We will only allow 1 amendment on the floor. Now, my photo policy is that I will allow photos taken at town meeting, provided that I have been requested by the person who wishes to take them in advance, and I have. We have the press that have asked to take photos. They may not take photos during a vote. If anyone needs to leave the auditorium for any reason, I ask that you use this doorway on my left, and that's to maintain the integrity of the vote, so that when you come back in, we know that you are checked in. Do not use the door on the right or in the rear, unless we have an emergency and you have to go out the rear, but if that happens, I want you to come back in this door as well. There is no smoking on school property. If you are parked in a fire lane, please make sure that you move your vehicle because you will be ticketed. Please turn off all of your cell phones and any other electronic devices that you have so as not to disturb anyone around you. I am required to call for a roll call of the department heads. I will do that now. I see that we have the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. Board of Health? Chief Assessor? Community Development Director? Conservation Agent? Data Processing, EMS, Inspectional Services, Municipal Maintenance, Planning Department, Police Department, Shellfish Harbor Master, Town Accountant, town clerk, town treasurer collector, library director, water pollution control, school superintendent. Okay, we still have time. Would the Thank you. At this time, before we get into the actual business of our town meeting, we have 2 upcoming retirements. So at this time, I would like to ask Dr. Rabinovich to please stand, and on behalf of town meeting, I would like to offer our best to you in your retirement and to thank you for all that you have done for the community, both as a teacher, educator, and as superintendent of schools. We wish you the best, and thank you for the time that you have given to the town of Wareham. In addition to Dr. Rabinovich, we also understand that Mark Gifford, Director of Municipal Maintenance, will be retiring. Mark has served the town for many, 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 many years. I remember when Mark came on as a young man and worked under the Municipal Maintenance Director, Tony Vicari. So Mark, sorry, Tony Fernandez, sorry. Mark. Thank you so much for your willingness to keep our town in the best condition that you've been able to do over the years, and we wish you the best of luck in your retirement. Enjoy, take a deep breath, and savor the moment in the days ahead. Still have some time, so when we left, well actually, let me ask if the Board of Selectmen would like to address the body. Would the Chair of the Board of Selectmen like to say anything?
Good evening and welcome back to town meeting. As you know, we're waiting. We're getting closer to a quorum. But I'd like to thank those of you who have decided to perform your duty as citizen legislators and come back out again. Just briefly, in the intervening time from the last town meeting to now, the selectmen, the school committee, and under the watchful eye of the FinCom have gotten together and crafted, I guess, what could best be described as a compromise budget. This was to resolve a budget difference of close to $1 million that existed in April. Just to revisit history briefly, we voted to table the money articles and come back to address them in June to provide time so that we could sit down, the 2 boards, along with superintendent and the town administrator, to come up with a workable budget. We have done that, and when the time comes to vote upon the budget, I would ask that you do that. It represents a lot of work by a lot of people. It's not a perfect budget. I don't think anybody was happy when we voted to pass the budget, but it's really the best compromise we can come up with. And other than that, we do have a special town meeting warrant. There are a couple of capital items on there: police cruisers, ambulance. These are important tools for public safety to do their jobs and keep us safe. I would ask the body to support those as well. I'd also like to recognize Barry for his service to the town. Thank you, Dr. Rabinovich. And also Mark Gifford for many years as well. Thank you. And with that, I don't know if the FinCom has any comments. Typically they do at this time of the meeting.
Would the FinCom like to make a statement?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm just going to reiterate what Selectman Titlebaum pretty much said. On March 13th, the Finance Committee voted 5-2 to reject the budget. It was incomplete, and it didn't address several of the critical needs of the town, and it did not reflect the school committee's voted budget. We asked the Board of Selectmen, mainly because there was a new board as well, to have the opportunity to look at it and go back and tweak it, and they did. Tonight we have before us a budget that was crafted through guidance, negotiation, and affirmation of all parties. We would like to thank all the parties for all their hard work, because there was an amazing amount of work that went into getting this to you folks tonight. The budget will not make everyone happy this evening, but it does reflect where we are as a town. There's no one-time money, there's nothing, there are necessary cuts in services to maintain a full-funded physical budget. However, critical capital needs such as an ambulance, technology for the schools system, and police vehicles are addressed in either of the continued town meeting or the special town meeting warrants. We are not alone in the financial struggles of municipalities throughout the Commonwealth, as well as in the country. We must plan for 2014 with an eye on the next 5 years and beyond. We must learn from our past mistakes and demand accountability from our elected leaders, administrators, department heads, and throughout the town. Managing our physical health should be a priority. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, when we left the annual town meeting in April, we had a motion on the floor to table Articles 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 13, 14, 16, 18, and 19. So before we can continue the annual town meeting, we need to have a motion to remove those articles from the table. A motion to take from the table may not be debated, amended, or reconsidered, and it requires a majority vote. So if I may have a motion to take Articles 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 13, 14, 16, 18, and 19 off of the table, please. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second to take from the table Articles 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 13, 14, 16, 18, and 19 for consideration and action. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Just one thing, when the FinCom makes your motion, if you could speak directly to the mic so that the tape does pick it up, because we do take all of our motions off the tape for the record, so we need to make sure that it is very clear on the tape. So make sure you do speak into. Now, we have 2 articles that we can go to that are non-monetary to give us a little bit of time to see if we can get some more people in here. We have Articles 16 and 18 that do not require the spending of any appropriation. So, Madam Clerk. Article 18. May I have a motion for Article 18?
Madam Moderator, I move to pass over this article.
Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. While we do believe in funding the line painting account, we're going to bring this article back in October when the account that we take it from, the parking meter account, will be fully funded. And that is the only reason we're postponing that. If you've seen around town, there's been some of the line painting activity, and that's from the funds that we took out in last October. Thank you.
May I have the recommendation by the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 4-0-0.
And the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee did not vote on this article.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 18? I see no one standing, therefore I will call for the vote on Article 18. The motion before you is what you see on the screen. I move to pass over this article. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes by a majority. Article 16. May I have a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move to pass over this article.
Thank you. May I have a second? To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This article, we do believe in upgrading the fuel system and actually replacing it. It's the one at the Municipal Maintenance Department. However, in crafting this article and trying to rescind parts of another borrowing article and take from several different departments, it just became so convoluted that we would rather do it in a clean manner and either borrow at the October town meeting, or if free cash is certified, use free cash at that time. So I would ask that we pass over this article. Thank you.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 4-0-0.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Madam Moderator, the Finance Committee did not vote on this article.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 16? Seeing no one standing, I now will call for a vote on Article 16. Requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the only two articles until we take a quorum count, but we are 1 minute away from our special town meeting, so if we can take a little bit of a deep breath, see if we can pass a minute here, and go into the special town meeting. Again, because this is a new town meeting, it is a special town meeting. Because we have newly registered voters, we will need to take a quorum account for this meeting because there potentially could be other voters. So when we go into our special town meeting, we are going to now use your purple cards. So if the tellers would please come forward, and ladies and gentlemen, if you would hold up your purple count so that the cards so that the tellers may count you as being a registered voter. Hold them up high. Do not put them down until the teller has advised you that they have counted your row. Hold up your purple cards. Keep them up till the teller advises you that they have counted your row. This is the special town meeting. These are the purple cards. The front section?
Section 127, 27.
Section 127. On my right?
Section 216.
On my right, 16. In the center?
58.
In the center, 58. On my left?
26, 26.
On my left, 26. We have 127 voters in the hall. May I have the return of the warrant?
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Plymouth SS, to either of the constables of the town of Wareham, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the legal voters of the town qualified to vote in town affairs to meet in the Wareham High School Auditorium, Viking Drive, Wareham, Mass. On Tuesday, June 18, 2013, at 7:30 p.m. to act on the following articles.
I will waive the reading of the articles.
Given under our hands this 14th day of May in the year 2013, Wareham Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have only 127 voters in the hall, which means we can only act on non-financial articles if they are under $5,000. Point of information?
Madam Moderator, point of information, I don't know if this is appropriate, but maybe we could take a 5-minute recess, and you could waive the cell phone rule, and maybe we could all make a phone call to see if we could get a quorum.
I would be very happy if that is the wishes of the body to take a 5-minute recess. And I would encourage you to turn on your cell phones and call your friends, family, and any neighbors and see if we can get some more voters down here. So we will recess for 5 minutes.
We have no budget. That's my question. She's taking.
We can do the,
Yeah, so anything that...
oh, so we can do all of them in a special? So we can do. So. One. Can you do that?
Collective bargaining agreement, labor council,
Yep.
so then that
So-
brings us up to the equalization council not appropriating money, we're just adding a new purpose to the appropriation. The grantee fees over town property, that's an appropriation.
So we can only not do one and two?
Comment right?
Try speaking directly into it. Matt, is that microphone on? Yep, we're getting there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please return to your seats and we will reconvene the meeting. For those watching at home, I will be making a public appeal to those who are watching us. If you would please get in your vehicles, if you're a registered voter, and come down. We have some business that we can attend to in the special town meeting. It still would give us time for you to get here so that we do have a quorum for the annual. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, if you would take your seat, we will reconvene our special town meeting. In our special town meeting, we have several articles that we could put into a consent agenda. Now, a consent agenda are exceptions to the general process of town meeting. And usually, if the moderator and the town administrator and town council determine that these articles would generate no discussion or no controversy, we could lump them all in and take them together. We have, I believe, let me see, 9. We have 9 articles that deal, that were inserted into the special town meeting that deal with contract negotiations. Now, since there's been no agreement that has been reached with 7 of the 9, and then in the other 2, there is no money that is involved, that it will be coming, those 2 will be coming back to the fall town meeting. All of these articles will have a motion to pass over. We also have Article 15, which was a petitioned article, and the petition article, if the petitioner were here, would also make a motion to pass over on that article. That was an article in which they wanted to have a street accepted, but they have not paved the street, it's not finished, and so they probably will be bringing it back another time. So I would like to put into a consent agenda the following articles, and if the body is in agreement with that, we can take them all up at once and adopt them as a consent agenda. So I will read which articles they are. If you have a problem with any of them going into a consent agenda, just say hold. They will not be put in the consent agenda. They will be taken up in regular order. But again, these are all articles that were inserted in the warrant as placeholders, and every one of them has a motion to pass over them. So they will be coming back at some future time. So into the consent agenda, I would like to suggest that we put Article 4, Article 5, Article 6, Article 7, Article 8, Article 9, Article 10, Article 11, Article 12, and Article 15. Hearing no objections, I would accept a motion. FinCom, if you could read it from the screen so that we have it for the tape, please.
Article 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 15, and to pass over these articles.
Thank you. May I have a second? We have a motion before us and a second to adopt as a consent agenda Articles 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 15. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Now, we still can go, we have, I believe, 3 articles that we can act on, and then we'll have to take a quorum count. So the 3 articles that we can take up are Articles 3, 13, and 14. Madam Clerk? Article 13. Article 13, may I have a motion, please?
I move that the town vote to amend Article 45 of the 2012 Spring Town Meeting, which transferred $400,000 for the construction and installation of a new 150,000-gallon water pollution control equalizing tank, by now including as an additional purpose the purchase of a cover for the existing equalization tank to mitigate odors.
Thank you. Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
Let me try that again. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator. All right, the first thing about this article to know is that it's not requesting any additional funds. In the Spring Town Meeting 2012, the Water Pollution Control Facility Director had requested $400,000 to construct an equalizing tank for odor mitigation at the Water Pollution Control Facility. That article passed. Simply since they had done that article, there was brought forward to the director's attention a new way to mitigate the odor problem that would solve, I believe, much more gallonage, if you will. And what we're seeking is to change the old article so that the verbiage will allow us to seek this new technology. And again, it's not additional funds, it's just a different, albeit better technology. Thank you.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Selectmen, it is on, okay. Selectmen voted favorable action 500.
Thank you. May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee? Try it again.
I'm sorry. Finance Committee voted favorable action 700.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 13? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for the vote. The vote on Article 13 requires a majority vote. The motion before you is that the now move to vote to amend Article 45 of the 2012 Springtown meeting, as you see before you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 3. May I have a motion on Article 3?
Madam Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the town administrator to lease, purchase, and equip an ambulance in fiscal year 2014 for emergency medical services.
Thank you. Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This article seeks to authorize the purchase of an ambulance. You'll notice there's no funding mechanism. Because this is a special town meeting, that action takes place in this fiscal year. So if we had the funding mechanism, we would have to take it out of this year's budget, which we have not planned for. What we're looking to do is, since this is a capital item, get the permission to purchase the ambulance, and then in the FY14 EMS budget, you'll see there'll be a line called capital. Capital will be $80,000. That's an approximate. It would be for purchasing an ambulance through a lease for 3 years. The EMS budget is what's called an offset receipt. In other words, their expenses are offset by the revenues they collect. We also believe that having the second ambulance that stays on the road, that is in constant service, does not break down and require us to call in municipal aid from other towns, will help us increase our revenue. So that's why we're seeking for this article, and in the special, again, there's no funding listed. We're just seeking the permission, and in the budget, you will see a line item of $80,000 of capital. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 300.
And may I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 700.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 3? Again, Article 3 is to authorize the town administrator permission to lease purchase. On my left?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. Just a question, the town administrator, or through you, Madam Moderator, to the town administrator, he mentioned that the account for emergency services is offset receipts. How do we collect the money? How do we know that we're collecting enough to offset everything else that we're spending, plus another $80,000 over each year for the next 3 years?
Thank you. That's a great question. And you did promise you'd stay home, so I appreciate you coming.
Thank you. I did come just for you.
It's, we have a medical billing service that does all the collections. And I'm trying to pull up the numbers we've had for the last 2 years. This year, I know through April, through the end of April, we've collected $947,000. Last year, we had collected $1,062,000 and some change. So I know that when you start factoring in some of the fringe benefits, it's tight. But we do believe, especially being able to collect more and having our ambulances on the road, that we will be within line that will not cost additional monies.
So if I may, Madam Moderator, a follow-up question. So we don't have that money as sort of profit, so to speak. We're thinking that if we buy it, we'll generate more revenue without a lot more cost, just the cost of the ambulance. Is that it?
We do have the funds available with our collections. Every year we've collected more than what this would cost, but I do believe we will have additional revenues that are coming in. So right now, if you did the salaries and wages, expenses, and the capital, what we bring in for revenue is greater than that.
By $80,000 or less than that?
I'm including the 80,000 in that number right now. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further to be said on Article 3? Seeing Selectman Donovan?
Yes, just briefly, I would urge the body to vote for this. I don't know how many of you have followed the tribulations of our EMS service over the past, I want to say, 6 to 8 months anyway. But very often, they are down to one ambulance, and on at least one occasion I can remember in the past several months, they were down to 0 functioning ambulances and had to rely upon mutual aid from neighboring towns to borrow ambulances from neighboring towns to make their runs. This is not a good situation for us to be in. We owe it to our citizens, if we're going to have an ambulance service, to provide one, to have functioning ambulances, to have ones that actually go somewhere when you turn the key. And so I think it's very important that we vote to pass this. There aren't a lot of capital items in the budget this year. We don't have the money for them. This is one of them, and it's one that's in here because of the priority that it deserves. So I urge your favorable vote on this article.
Thank you. Anything further to be said on Article 3? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for the vote. Again, this is just to authorize the town administrator to lease, purchase, and equip an ambulance that requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 14. Can I have a motion on Article 14?
Madam Moderator.
I move that
the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to grant an easement over town-owned property identified on the Assessor's Map 129 as Lot 1093-A. The easement dimensions being more particularly described on a plan entitled Easement Plan Proposed Sewer Connection 3 Old Glen Charlie Road, Wareham, Massachusetts, prepared for Roy W. Christopherson and Sias Point Road, Wareham. I'm lost. I'm reading upside down. This is hard. Oh, sorry. Let's try that again from the Old Glen Charlie Road, where, there you go. Thank you. Prepared for Roy W. Christopherson, 8 Silas Point, Wareham, Massachusetts, prepared by GAF Engineering, Inc., dated May 10, 2013, the purpose of the easement being granted so as to allow for the sewer connection of a property identified on Assessor Map 129 as Lot 193B, 3 Old Glen Charlie Road, to the municipal sewer system.
Do I have a second? Second. To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This was brought to us by a resident to the Water Pollution Control Facility Director, and we had submitted this as an article. In looking at it, I think it probably should have been brought as a petitioned article, but I'm going to ask that the Mr. Campina come up and speak to it to give a better background to everybody, if he doesn't mind. Thank you.
Mr. Campina?
Good evening, Madam Moderator. Speaking on the article, Mr. Christopherson owns a piece of property on 3 Old Glen Charlie Road with a failed septic system, and he encroaches upon wetland, and the lot is a very small lot, and he has no area to put a septic system. So he petitioned the sewer department, and we in turn asked the selectmen for permission to allow him to tie into the town sewer system. To do that, he needs to take what they call low pressure system and pump the sewer to our manhole. We had this approved by the Department of Environmental Protection, and they're on board because of what we're gaining. What we're asking this evening is that the easement be granted. It's town property, so we're asking the body to give us permission to grant Mr. Christopherson through JF Engineering the easement so they can actually lay this 2-inch small line to connect to the sewer system. This is for a duplex. I think it's a 3-family home, and it's only for that 3-family home. So Mr. Christopherson has asked us, and I am in turn asking the body. I don't know what other clarification I can add, but I'm available for any questions you may have to clarify it further.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted no action 5-0-0 on this. We were concerned that town meeting was giving us, in a sense, too broad a grant of authority here. What we would like to have is some kind of limitation on the type of structure that can be served by this easement. Town council advises us to some extent that that can happen once town meeting makes that delegation to us. But our preference would be to learn more about this and for it to come back in the fall. And subsequent to the FinCom, I intend to make a motion for no action or further study, whichever would be preferable to you, Madam Moderator.
Let me have the FinCom give their recommendation and vote, and then if you wish to stand and make an amendment, I will then accept your amendment. May I have the recommendation, the vote of the FinCom and its recommendation?
The Finance Committee voted no action 7-0-0. The Finance Committee recommends no action on this article. Further information is needed, and this information was not available at the time, and there were several concerns.
Selectman Titlebaum?
Madam Moderator, I rise to move to amend this article to one of no action. It requires further study, I believe, by the Board of Selectmen in public session. It requires more information, as you heard from the FinCom. They voted against it solely on the basis of lack of information unanimously. So I would ask the body its indulgence. Let's get the facts before you so that you can make an informed decision and make an accordingly appropriate delegation of authority to the Board of Selectmen to negotiate the easement with the property owner and do it that way. So that's what I would ask.
Yeah, could we have the motion in writing? And I'm anticipating that your motion is going to be for further study.
Yes.
So,
I see council is jotting that down for me.
okay. We have a motion before us for further study on Article 14. Do I have a second to Selectman Titlebaum's? I have a second. What we have before us now, open for discussion, is the amendment that is coming before you for further study. Gentleman on my left to speak to the article as amended for further study.
Frank D. Felice, 53 Mackey Way. Am I to understand that they want this to build a three-family home? There's nothing on that lot right now, and they're looking to build one? Is that correct, or is there a three-family home there now?
Mr. De Felice, I'm not sure if anyone can answer that question, but the motion before us is for further study.
Yeah, and I'm
so what I
agreeing.
would like you to speak to is why you support further study or why you don't support further
I'm
study.
supporting further study for the fact is that if they're wanting to build on this, then it needs plenty of further study. But if there's a three-family home on it right now, then maybe we want to bring the sewer to it because we don't want it, they must have septic. So I'd just like to know that.
To answer the question, Mr. Campagna?
Yes, Madam Moderator. It's an existing three-bedroom family with a failed septic system that is presently polluting the wetland.
Gentleman on my right, Mr. Camerano?
Yes, Madam Moderator. I just wanted to bring up to the people that why would the town, I mean, further study is great, but shouldn't the town be thinking about, you know, they're giving away town land, town land that they want to put an easement on, that, you know, in a cash-strapped town, to someone that wants to make money by building a bigger home, you know, a real estate investor. Shouldn't the town be looking at, you know, charging someone for this type of access? I mean, further study is all well and good, but I believe the town should not be giving away its land for easement rights for someone else to make money. The town needs to make money. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman on my right?
Howard Smith, Precinct 4. I believe this article should be referred for further study. I have a problem with this. I'm very familiar with sewerage in this area. There is no sewer line on Old Glen Charlie Road. The closest sewer line is across the street, which means somehow or other this line is going to be run across Cranberry Highway and through somebody else's property to connect to a sewer line. I think these are issues that really should be resolved before this is placed before this body for a vote.
Thank you. Is there any further to be said on my right?
Sandy Slavin, I stand in opposition to this amendment. This particular project has come before Conservation Commission and has been approved as stated. It is for a failed septic system that will be coming across 6 and 28 to connect to our own sewer lines. It has been properly vetted by Conservation, and we believe this is the best use of that particular property, so that we can get a better sewer system in there as opposed to polluting our waters as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman on my right? Yes.
Hi, I'm Roy Christopherson, the owner of the property, the very old three-family house with a failed sewer system. And I just wanted an easement to go over some town property that already has easements across it. It's not a buildable lot, the town lot. It's a very high water table. The pipe will go across that property, underneath Route 28, down the sidewalk and into town sewerage, and I'm paying for the whole thing. It's a lot better than putting a septic system on the land, which it just doesn't support it. So just want to avoid it and get this thing done so it's sewage is in the right place, right in the town sewage system, and it's all done. There's no other property can tie into it, no other houses can tie into it. It's all been discussed, I think, at the selectmen's meeting, when the selectmen said, yes, it seems okay to them. That was a few months ago. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Titlebaum, since you've already had a chance to speak, I'm going to let someone who hasn't, and then you can finish up whatever time you have remaining. On my right?
Thomas Becky, Precinct 3. I rise in support of the amendment. I was in a similar situation in a piece of property that we sold in another town in another state, and we had to pay the adjoining property owner for the easement rights to run the sewer line through their property to the municipal sewer. So I think while I support, protection of the environment, and I think it's very appropriate, and would agree that we should do that, I think we do need further study, and at the very least, there's going to be potential activity on that property in perpetuity. If there's a problem with the sewer line 10 or 15 or 20 years down the road, that's the community property is going to have to be dug up again, and that's going to have to be repaired. So I think we do need further study on this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Titlebaum?
Yes, just briefly through you, Madam Moderator. Is there anyone, I keep hearing that this is a failed septic system. Is there anyone here from the Board of Health, or perhaps the previous speaker, the property owner, could address that question as to who made that finding and whether it is on record with the Board of Health? I'm just curious.
To answer the question only?
Joseph Mulkern, Precinct 2.
Just a minute, Mr. Mulkern. I'm waiting for someone from the Board of Health to answer the
Mr.
question.
Felice was already up there. And
He's answering the question as an official of the town, which is why we asked the town department heads to come. The question has been asked by Selectman Titlebaum if there has been an official determination made that that is a failed system. So I will ask, as Chairman of the Board of Health, Mr. De Felice, to answer that question and that question only and nothing more.
Well, my answer is, can an alternative system be put here in place of what's there?
That's not the question. The question to the Board of Health is it a matter of record that this is a failed septic system?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you. I believe the gentleman on my left was next.
Malcolm Finney, 10 Galt Road. As I listened to the discussion here, and this has to do with further study, I do think that probably care of the environment trumps whatever little costs and legal problems that some people have with this. And we're in a situation where our bay is being destroyed by septic systems. If this is a chance to improve that situation, again, I say, I think it trumps it. And I don't know how long further study is going to delay this. If it's a failed system, how much time does he have to solve this problem? I know there are some limits on that, but I just think when you vote on this, just think about the environment's more important than whatever little legal or money matters we're talking about here.
Thank you. Gentleman on my right.
Okay, Joseph Mulkern again, Precinct 2. I sit on the Conservation Commission as well. This came before us, and I'm sure the Board of Health knows about it because we discussed this thing on the Conservation Commission as a failed septic system. We found out that he was going through wetlands, so we gave him approval, the owner, to do this here, but I agree with Mr. Taliban because there are alternative ways. I don't want people thinking that this building is going to be torn down. There are other ways to correct the septic system without going through it, but I think the alternative plan that they're looking for is, not going through the wetlands myself personally because it's town-owned land. And like I said, other gentleman said that if you go through our land that belongs to us, someone should pay for something, okay? Thank you.
Gentleman on my right, I believe it, Mr. Christopherson. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this? Mr. Christopherson has had the opportunity to speak. I always allow those who have not to come first. Seeing no one else, Mr. Christopherson, I believe you have a few more minutes. You have a minute left.
Oh, okay. The pipe that's going to be going from the three-family will just be going across a small lot that's not buildable. It's not going through, the pipe won't be going through any wetlands. It'll be going across a piece of property that already has prior easements for water drainage. It's not, in fact, the land was given to the town. It's not buildable, so they just given to the town many years ago. And it will be going under 28 down a sidewalk. The rough estimate that I got that the system's going to cost me is between $30,000 and $50,000, which is an enormous amount of money. But it's going to be done the right way. It'll be pumping into town sewage, and the job will be done.
On my right,
Madam Moderator, I move the question.
we have a motion before us to move the question which ends all debate. It requires a 2/3 vote. I will try for unanimous. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. I believe we have a 2/3 vote. So we have the article before us, Mr. Selectman Titlebaum's motion, which is I move to amend this motion to further study. This will require a majority vote. The amendment on the floor before you is for further study. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Chair is going to take a hand count. Tellers, please come forward. All those in favor of Selectman Titlebaum's motion for further study, please raise your cards. Purple cards. Section in the front.
Section 11414.
On my right.
Section 2-4.
Is that for FOR? Thank you. FOUR.
Yes, 4, and I can't count no more.
Thank you. In the center?
24.
In the center, 24. On my left?
7.
On my left, 7. All those opposed to Selectman Titlebaum's amendment, please raise your purple cards. In the front?
1414.
14. On my right?
14-1-4.
In the center?
44.
And on my left?
20.
I'm sorry, is that 2-0?
Correct.
We have 49 votes in the affirmative, 92 votes in the negative. Selectman Titlebaum's motion carries for further study. This now becomes the main motion. Oh, I'm sorry, my error. Yeah. I'm thinking ahead of what we have to do next. So we have 49 in the affirmative, 92 against. His motion fails. So we are back to the main motion, which would be, as you see before us, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to grant an easement over town-owned property. Is there anything to be said on Article 14?
Madam.
On my left.
Madam Moderator, Irvin Russell, Precinct 6. Would it be possible to offer an amendment with the strict stipulation that this would be conditioned on the 3 existing apartments, and that any further additions would be a violation or be subject to town action? I mean, I would offer that amendment as a...
Town meeting, you would have the ability to make a motion, but you would need to be very specific in your motion. So you would need to put that in writing. Teller can give you a piece of paper, and if you could put your amendment in the form of a motion.
Well, what if we authorize the selectmen to apply this stipulation in the form of a...
Mr. Russell would like to offer an amendment to move to have the strict limit of 3 apartments on this property. To speak to your amendment, Mr. Russell?
Yes, Madam Moderator, I would ask the body to act on this if it is endangering our environment, that we should take action. But we also should be protected in the possibility of it, this development turning into a multifaceted facility, and we should have some protections from that. I mean, if he was to make a hotel or whatever, I mean, excuse me, maybe that's not a little bizarre, but I would ask the body to take action on this rather than to prevent or put ourselves in jeopardy in not acting on this. But we should be protected with the restriction. Madam Mayor.
Is there anything further to be said on Mr. Russell's amendment to add a stipulation that the Board of Selectmen grant this easement? And I'm going to run this by Mr. Russell, that Town Council would offer these words to you because it is a legal easement, just to make sure that we're correct in how we do this amendment. Mr. Russell, if this is okay with you, I move to amend the article so that the easement not allow a flow for more than the current 3 apartments now on site. Does that meet with your approval? Okay, and then I'll have you sign it after. To speak to Mr. Russell's amendment? Is there a second? Second. We have a second to speak to Mr. Russell's amendment.
I get, excuse me, Jeff Sweat, Cremisa Road. I get concerned when a legislative body starts intruding on the expertise of other committees and bodies that exist within this town. We have zoning committees. To me, this is intruding on an area, and I'm uncomfortable with this amendment, even though I'm quite comfortable with the idea of someone willing to spend $30, $40, $50,000 to do the right thing on behalf of the environment. And I speak against the amendment, not because I don't understand the intent, but because I think this is intruding on other bodies' areas of expertise.
Is there anything further to be said on Mr. Russell's amendment? Seeing no one standing, Mr. Russell's amendment will now come before you. Mr. Russell's amendment is, I move to amend the article so that the easement not allow for flow for more than the current 3 apartments now on site. This amendment requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The amendment fails. We are now back to our original article as presented, Article 14, that you see before you on the screen on my left.
Mike Pohl, Precinct 2. My concern with this motion is the question of the easement and not the restriction on the property. We just had a representative from the Board of Health say that he is unaware if the septic system has actually failed, whereas, and it sounded like the Conservation Commission was relying on what it thought was direction from the Board of Health. When we hear that it's going to cost $30,000 or $40,000, if the property owner is discharging sewage into a wetland, that's the property owner's violation, and it's the property owner's responsibility to resolve that problem. If the cheapest solution, which I suspect this is to get an easement through town property for no money, I presume the landowner will want to go in that direction. I presume there are other solutions which include, everything from a porta potty on site to a temporary storage of sewage and a tank on the property. It seems to me what the landowner is asking here is for town meeting to help him achieve the cheapest solution to his property. So I don't understand. On the one hand, I'm a nice guy. I like to think I'm a nice guy, and I would be willing to do this. But it seems to me that I agree with the member of the FinCom who said that this is a piece of town property, and we're going to grant an easement to somebody to make life easier for him. And yes, there is a common benefit, but he still needs to solve his problem.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 14? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote on Article 14 as originally presented before you on the screen. Now, this does require a 2/3 vote because it's the giving up of land by the town. So the original motion, Article 14, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to grant an easement because the Board of Selectmen, if they determine and agree to grant this easement, will be giving up a piece of land. And so this article does require a 2/3 vote. State your point.
Madam Moderator, the motion by the FinCom is no action. Is that not the motion?
No. The motion that the Finance Committee made is what is on the screen. That was the original motion that was made by the Finance Committee. They voted no action. That was their recommendation, but that was not the motion that was made. The motion on the floor is what is up on the screen before us, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to grant an easement. State your point. Right, at the Finance Committee's meeting, when they go through the warrant articles, and they come before us to make their recommendation, their original vote that they took at their meeting was for no action. So once again, we have Article 14 before us. Mr. Mulkern?
Yes, Mr. Mulkern, Precinct 2. I'm just back to under the explanation here in this book here. Right down the last section, it says that the state approved the drawings. Has the state approved the drawings where this is a state road?
To answer that question, someone have the answer? Mr. Campina?
To answer the question, the state hasn't approved any drawings whatsoever. The state Department of Transportation is waiting for the town to act before they act on granting him the right to go under the road. That's what the state's waiting for. The Department of Environmental Protection says it does not violate our comprehensive wastewater management plan and that they can tie into the town sewer.
Thank you. That answers one question. Now, here we get back to the point is, this is a pump system here, and if something happens with the pump, it's PVC pipe I'm sure they're using to go to the town sewer. Who's going to pay to tear up the road if there's a problem in the future?
To answer the question, Mr. McDonald? No? Anyone to answer the question?
To answer the question, the homeowner is responsible and required to get a maintenance agreement with a contractor that will take care of the pumping system, the piping, and anything that goes on the highway. So if there's a problem, then the homeowner is responsible to make all repairs, no cost to the town or the state.
On my right?
Michelle Langford, District 4, sorry. I just have a point of clarification I'd like to know. When you grant an easement, that doesn't give them the land, it just lets them use it, correct?
That's correct. Well,
there is a difference.
Would you like to
They don't
respond?
own it.
I'm going to let council answer that.
It's a 2-inch pipe.
Madam Moderator, through the previous speaker, every piece of land is made up of a bundle of interests, the right to hold, use, possess, depending on what you want to do with it. An easement constitutes one strand of the bundle of interests. So when you give an easement to someone, be it this one or any other easement, you are giving a property right. You are, in essence, giving a piece of property. You are giving a right to use the property for a specified purpose. So that's how it works.
On my left?
Madam Moderator, Mike Flaherty, Precinct 1, I move the question.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else standing, but I will accept the motion. Requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It's unanimous. We now have before us Article 14. Article 14 is as you have before you on the screen, which would, if you vote in the affirmative, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to grant an easement over town-owned property. This requires a 2/3 vote. I will try for unanimous, and if not, we will take a hand count. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Because it does involve town property, I am going to ask the tellers to come forward. All those in favor of Article 14, please raise your purple cards.
Yes, no?
In the front,
2525.
on my right,
1717.
17. In the center,
56.
and on my left,
33.
33. All those opposed? In the front?
4.
On my right?
4.
In the center?
11.
And on my left?
3.
There are 131 votes in the affirmative, 52 in the negative. It does carry. It passes by a majority vote, by 2/3. State your point.
Not up to the vote, but with the tally of that count of 131 in the affirmative and 22 in the negative for a total count of 153, can we take that as a quorum count to do all business?
We could. So just so that we are aware, Article 14 did pass by a required 2/3 vote, and I need to announce that. Okay, I am going to declare, based on the vote that we just took, that we have a quorum for all purposes, and so we will move back. We have 2 articles left, Articles 1 and 2. Article 2. Article 2, may I have a motion?
I move that the town vote to approve and transfer from the stabilization fund $238,000 to purchase and equip 3 patrol cars and 2 supervisor SUVs, and further to authorize the town administrator to expend such funds that are necessary for this action.
Do I have a second? Have a second? I'm just looking for the town administrator to speak to the article. What's that? I'm sorry. I have a second. I'm waiting for the town administrator to speak to the article. Ready to go. Yes, Article 2 of the special. To speak to Article 2 of the special town meeting.
I apologize for the additional wait for all of this. Article 2 of the special town meeting is for the purchase of 5 vehicles altogether for the police department. The total cost is $238,000. This is to replace 5 of the old Crown Victorias. They have mileage ranging from 120 to 144,000. The new Dodge Chargers that we bought I believe 3 years ago, and then another lease set 2 years ago, all have in the range of 90 to 100+ thousand miles as well. We do have one vehicle with 16,000 miles, and that was because one of the cruisers was destroyed in an accident, and we have replacement cost, so that vehicle was replaced. These are where our officers survive daily, go out on calls. It is their home away from home and their a substation, if you will. It's important to give them the tools to do their jobs so that they can provide for the safety of this town. And I would ask that you support this article. And again, I apologize for the delay.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0, but that was based on a modification of this particular article.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0 based on an amendment to the article, so I can't, it's a little confusing. Basically, we voted 0-0-0-5-0 as written, and we would be making a change to the amendment if FinCom does it first. As they have.
You have to really speak into the microphone, Mr. Selectman Slavin.
The FinCom has the right of first amendment. If they do not make an amendment, the Board of Selectmen will be making an amendment to this article.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The vote of the Finance Committee was 5 favorable, 2 rejected, and 0 abstentions.
To speak to Article 2? Anyone? On my right, Mrs. Bronk?
I would like to offer an amendment to Article number 2. And I would move that we amend it to 3 police cruisers and no unmarked cars. And it would reduce it by, what is it, $82,000. The reason I do this is basically, it's not that I dispute we need police cruisers. However, we're rating the stabilization fund that we need for emergency things such as roofs. We've had problems with the high school roof. We've had problems with the town hall roof. We have over $1 million worth of much needed things that are listed on the capital program. I'm sorry that the police fund continuously for the last 3 years has been over budget, totaling over $750,000. No other department is running like this department. I know the
Mrs.
things
Bronk?
that, no, okay.
First of all, we need to have your motion.
Okay.
First of all, that's what we need to have.
I make a motion that we approve, excuse me, okay, 3 police cruisers at the rate of whatever they are versus the 5.
I need to have.
I'll write it down.
What? I need to have.
$158,000. Thank you.
So your motion is going to be that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from the stabilization fund $158,000 to purchase 3 police cruisers. That will be your motion.
Madam Moderator.
Do I have a second? Okay, so we need to, when you're writing your motion, Mrs. Bronk, we need to put to purchase and equip. So we have a motion by Mrs. Bronk, which I believe will be that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from the stabilization fund $158,000 to purchase and equip 3 police cruisers. I had a second. To speak to the amendment, Mr. DeFelice on my left.
Yeah, Frank D. Felice, 53 Mackey Way. Excuse me. The original motion, I'm going to speak to this one. I did a little figure and it was $47,000 a vehicle. Her motion brings them to $52,000 a vehicle. So, I mean, she's raising the price of a vehicle, so I can't go along with her motion. And I would like to know, 47,000 or 52,000, that's a lot of money for a vehicle. And I'm sure they can equip with what they have. I want the police force to have what they want to have, but that sounds like a lot of money to me. And somebody can speak to that money, please?
Madam Moderator, through you.
To answer Mr. De Felice's
Yes,
question?
I'll do that first.
Thank you.
Two of the vehicles were SUVs, which were of a higher cost. But that was the number we had on our sheet, was 82,180 for those.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on the amendment? Mr. McDonald?
Here I am again. I rise in opposition. Many towns throughout the Commonwealth and throughout this country are experiencing financial difficulties and are tapping into their stabilization funds. That's what a stabilization fund is for. The other side of that is that one of the things that we as a finance committee asked from our selectmen was to put together, and our town administrator, was to put together a way to replenish or fund the stabilization fund, because, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot fund it from our operating budget any longer. So I think the selectmen took that task to hand and decided, put together a policy to fund the stabilization through free cash. So I rise in opposition to this. I think, first off, we need the vehicles. And second off, we are going to be able to fund stabilization through free cash. So it's not going to sit dormant. It's not going to continue to be reduced at this point.
Thank you. On my left?
Donna Ashley, Precinct 6. I also rise in opposition to this amendment. I know the town is struggling. We're going through hard times. There are places that you can make cuts. The safety of the citizens in this town, I don't believe, is one of them. I think our officers do a fine job, and I don't want to be responsible for a vote at town meeting that is going to tie their hands and not give them the equipment that they need to do. They put their lives in danger for us every single day, and I honestly feel that we need to provide them with the best equipment and the equipment that they need. I don't think they ask excessively, but when they have a need, I think we need to do that.
Selectman Titlebaum?
I rise in opposition to the amendment as well, while I understand the spirit in which it is offered. In addition to the officer's safety, all of our safety is at stake here. These vehicles get beat up very quickly, and one of the worst things that happens to them is that their front ends get banged up on our bad New England roads. And to operate these vehicles well past the time at which they are still really serviceable is too dangerous. And it's dangerous not just to the officers, it's dangerous to anyone else who happens to be on the road at the same time they are. So it's important that we equip the officers with the appropriate vehicles to protect them and ourselves. So I would urge the defeat of this amendment. Thank you.
On my left?
Is that me? I'm sorry. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. I rise in support of the amendment, and not because I'm against police or anything, or safety or anything like that, but because for so long we have tried to justify our expenses based on need, and we found ourselves in a hole in this town where we have no more money to support needs. We do have a stabilization fund. It may be funded according to the policy that's just been developed, but in real terms, we don't have any history that says that we'll be able to do that. And so the town is rapidly approaching a time where need is going to take a second place to resources and the amount of funding we have. We just supported the acquisition of a new ambulance for a department that I think breaks even, but it certainly doesn't make any money on the new ambulance the way it was described. And now we're taking more money and putting it towards, and again, I won't argue the need, but putting half of our savings account towards a specific issue. And we don't have the money anymore to support the needs of the town. And we can't just keep saying we need it, we need it, we need it. We have to start to think about who's going to pay for it, who's going to pay for what we're not doing for the schools, who's going to pay for what we're not doing for the public, who's going to pay for what we're not doing for everything else. And so I support the amendment, and if it wasn't for that amendment, I would have made an amendment to eliminate all 5 vehicles. Thank you.
10 seconds. Am I right?
Yes, thank you. Sandy Slavin, Precinct 3. Before I vote on this, I'd like to know what the cost is for each patrol car and for each SUV, because there's a document from the capital planning asks for that there were $33,000 a car, and I'm just wondering to know what the cost per vehicle it is, so I know whether or not the amendment is sufficient for the 3 patrol cars. Thank you.
To answer the question? To answer the question, Mr. McDonald?
According to the document provided to us, the patrol cars, the 3 patrol cars, are $128,000, and there's 3 of them. The Dodge Durango supervisor cars are $82,180. I think we have to go back and mess with the number because the data, it's a little convoluted. The data 911 computers are for all 5 vehicles, so we're going to have to put that amount into the number as well. Then there's a trade-in of 4 vehicles. So if you give us a minute, we'll put the number together, the exact number.
Gentlemen, actually, Mrs. Bronk, you had started out. Gentleman on my left, then I'll come back to you to give you remaining time.
Hi, Von Wedge, Precinct 2. I don't want to beat a dead horse about the safety of our patrol men and women out there that work every day. We've all had vehicles that have little quirks and qualms, and we get by with them in our personal life. We're not going 80 miles, 70 miles an hour to a scene of someone's life in danger. The other fact that I think about is the expense once these vehicles run out of warranty. We got to take that money for somewhere to pay for the repairs of these vehicles at the age and the mileage that are on them at this point in time. So I think you should take that into consideration also. We still have to pay for all these repairs if they're not under warranty.
Thank you. Do you have that number, Mr. McDonald? Okay. Am I right?
Jeff Sweat, Cremisa Road. Point of information, during the first 5 years of, from 2000 approximately to 2005, there was a period of time where we actually had police cruisers, patrol cars, part of the operating budget of the police department. Why did we do that? Because a capital item not only has to cost a certain amount, it has to have a certain useful life. And if it doesn't last longer than a certain useful period of time, you can debate whether that's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's not actually considered a capital item, and it just needs to be funded on an annual basis. We did that, and we should be doing it now if we could afford it. But the bottom line to this is the 2 highest priorities of any city or town has to be the security of its citizens and the education of its children. If you don't do those 2 things well, there's really not much point in calling yourself a town. We cannot afford not to fund the police department at a level that the town administrator and the chief think it's appropriate for the safety of our citizens. I think the amendment is ill-considered.
On my left?
Stanley Andrews, Cranberry Highway. I'm still confused on how much a cruiser would cost and how much the SUVs would cost. I understand the chief of police is supposed to be here. Is he here to answer the questions?
The chief was here. He had to leave due to an emergency that our police departments have. And
Nobody's here to answer it?
Lieutenant Walsh is here to answer any questions as one of the operational commanders.
Can I get an answer?
just so you know that any voter is welcome to ask a question, but we cannot mandate or make anyone answer the question.
No?
So I have to leave that up, that if the appropriate person wishes to answer your question, they will do so, but we cannot make people answer questions.
Don't our department heads work for us?
They do.
He
They
doesn't
do.
seem like he wants to.
I believe that Mr. McDonald was trying to put those numbers together, so maybe we would have that answer through Mr. McDonald.
I believe the number that you're looking to put in there is 159,165. That covers the 3 vehicles plus the Data 911 computers.
Well, yeah, we have an amendment before us
What
for $158,000. So the question that the gentleman had, though, was, did you come up with a cost for the police cruisers?
Well, there's 2 different vehicles here. There's Chargers and there's SUVs.
To answer, can someone answer the question?
What I have for the Chargers is when they are equipped with the 911 data computers, $49,318.67. And for the Durangos are, when equipped with the 911 computers, $48,218.67.
Does that answer your question? Okay, Mrs. Braun?
Yes. I understand, folks, that this is an unpopular amendment, and I kind of agree, but the problem is our stabilization fund. We didn't have one for several years, and it's been a real battle to get money for emergencies that we all need. No one is disputing the police department. We want them to be safe and have vehicles, and that was the reason for the 3 cruises that were included in there. However, there might be a policy that the selectmen are going to set up here, and they're set up to put into the stabilization. Doesn't mean there's going to be any money to put into it. And once it's gone, I seriously doubt you're going to see anything coming back. Then what are we going to do when a major catastrophe happens? That's all I'm trying to stress here, is to keep some funds for a major catastrophe. That is the only reason for this amendment.
On my left to speak to the amendment.
I don't know whether it's the amendment or information that I'd like to share. As chairman of community events last year, we voted to put money aside for parking kiosks that would generate money, and this is probably a fund that could be help alleviate some of the problem. Most communities have parking kiosks, a certain percentage.
Mrs. Ricky, we really need you to stick to the amendment and the article before us.
Well, I wanted to support this
you know,
to
why
say
we support.
we should go, forward with the initial article, because it's something that is needed, and we do have a vehicle. It's just a timing, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of the timing of this particular project, and that's my purpose of rising, just to share outside the box. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 2?
Mike Pohl, Precinct 2. If I could get a clarification, Selectman Slavin said that of the original motion, the selectmen were completely opposed to it, but he anticipated an amendment that suggested the selectmen would favor, and then Selectman Teitelbaum opposed this amendment. So I wonder if he could clarify what he was trying to say at the beginning. We couldn't hear him.
To answer the question?
The board, just before this meeting, sat and had discussions about the type of vehicles. And we were basically had a different thought process of what type of vehicles we should have as far as purchasing, which would affect the dollar amount. That's what we were discussing. We were basically in favor of the 5 vehicles, but we were looking for a certain type which would better fit what we thought was long-term for the town.
Fuel efficient.
On my right?
Michelle Langford, District 4. I just did a little quick math. The total that the town administrator gave was closer to 246,000. So are we going to have a problem with that?
47, which is
Right now, we're working on the Mrs. Bronk's motion, which is to move to appropriate and transfer 158,000. So that's the amendment.
Okay, but that's still more than we need for the 3 vehicles.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 2? Okay, we have before us an amendment to Article 2 that was put forward by Mrs. Bronk to move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from the stabilization fund $158,000 to purchase and equip 3 police cruisers. That is the amendment that you have before you. It would require a majority vote for the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
The amendment fails. If 7 people wish to question the count, okay, we will take a count. Would the tellers please come forward? All those in favor of the amendment, please hold up your purple cards. In the front,
Section 1-8.
Section 1-8. On my right,
16, 1-6.
16. In the center,
40.
40. On my left,
29,
I'm sorry, what was it?
29,
29. All those opposed to the amendment, please hold up your purple cards. In the front,
15, 1-5.
on my right,
5.
5. In the center,
25, 2-5.
center 25 on my left,
7,
we have 93 in the affirmative, 52 in the negative. The amendment passes. We now have a vote before us on Article 2. The amendment becomes the main motion, which would now be that the town vote to appropriate and transfer from the stabilization fund $158,000 to purchase and equip 3 police cruisers. This would require a 2/3 vote.
What does that amend?
State your point. No, the last count we had a quorum, Mr. Camerano. We now have Article 2 before us with the amendment. Is there anything further to be said on Article 2 as amended? If not, I will call for the vote. It requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of Article 2 as amended, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. It passes by a 2/3 majority. I believe we have Article 1. May I have a motion?
I move that the town vote to appropriate and transfer sums of money within the budget lines voted in Article 6 of the May 24th, 2012 annual town meeting as shown in the document titled June 18, 2013 transfer table, a copy of which is projected in PowerPoint.
Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. These are the year-end transfers that we will be moving from inter and intra-department. I know it's going to be a little hard to see, so I'll run through there. Transfer number 1 is from the town accountant expenses line in the amount of $1,500 to the general services expenses line. General expenses went over budget in postage. General expenses are our postage, our advertising, and the printing and mailing for our postage room, for lack of a better term. The general services budget will end at $63,345. Transfer number 2 is from the inspectional services salaries, and that's $3,000 to the inspectional services expenses. We had a surplus in inspectional services salaries because when the last building commissioner left, we hired an interim who was paid as a contractor. When you're paid as a contractor, you cannot be paid salary, you can only be paid from expenses. So that left a surplus in the salary line and a deficit in the expense line. The Board of Health, transfer number 3. The Board of Health salaries, $2,500 to Board of Health expenses. The Board of Health had a surplus in their salaries when one of the employees left. A new one was hired at a lower rate. Their expenses went over as they were underfunded in the gasoline line. That has been corrected for FY14. Transfer number 4 is the town administrator salaries line of $50,000. There was a surplus in the account as we did not hire the financial analyst position and did not fill it. Also, for a small period of time during this fiscal year, there was an interim town administrator who was partially paid out of the treasurer collector's office. The transfers made to the streetlights account in $50,000. The streetlights have gone over, even though they were trending well for the year, so we received notification from NSTAR that there were 2, for lack of a better term, hiccups in the billings. So that will make the expenses at roughly $150,000 for the year. Transfer number 5 is from town accountant expenses to workers' compensation. Workers' compensation went over by $3,000 this year. We have adjusted it by 16% for next year and feel that that will cover what the costs will be. Transfer number 6 is from the assessor's salary lines of $27,000 and short-term interest of $1,000. The assessor's salaries had a surplus in their lines as the assistant data collector and assistant assessor was not hired. This is moved over to the FICA line in the amount of $28,000. Although FICA shows at this time that it would make it before the end of the year, there will be checks coming from the school for the summer, which are roughly 5 checks that will cost us approximately the $28,000. This was not anticipated in the budget. However, we have corrected this for the FY14 budget. Short-term interest has a surplus of $1,000 as we did not, and you will see this in transfer number 9 as well, we did not fully need what we had funded. Transfer number 7, town accountant salaries, $13,000. We had a surplus, as for a period of time, we were without a town accountant, and when we filled that position, we did not fill the assistant town accountant position. Inspection salaries, we've gone over that with the building commissioner. There's another $10,000 from them, and short-term interest, an amount of $2,000 for the veterans expenses line. Veteran expenses, we have no control over. It is what's charged to the town. In the next fiscal year, you receive a 75% reimbursement of that, and that comes in the form of state aid. We have adjusted the FY14 number to $331,000 because we believe that is where it's trended. Municipal maintenance salaries, $8,700 to municipal maintenance expenses. The snow and ice budget was covering some of the salaries, as during the time that they were working, it was doing snow plowing, and we have a deficit in expenses as FEMA did not reimburse us for the blizzard or winter storm Nemo. We were 1/2 of an inch too short of being within the realm of FEMA to reimburse us. And that's all of Plymouth County. Transfer number 9, long-term principal, long-term interest, and short-term debt. Because one of the capital projects we had proposed was not fully completed, we did a temporary borrowing known as a ban, which I believe the interest on that is roughly $2,000, and we did not need this amount of principal and interest. This will be moved to the police overtime budget in the amount of $107,000. During the year, the police department has suffered many absences, if you will, including these 2 retirements that cost $60,000. Probably the question is, why are we not budgeting for retirements? And the simple answer is that our budgets are lean enough that we have to figure out who you would lay off in order to have the cushion to plan for retirements. So that's the final transfer on number 9. Thank you.
May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 3-0.
Thank you. May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee did not have the opportunity to vote on this as we did not have the information in time.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article number 1? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for the vote on Article number 1, as is before you on the screen, that the town vote to appropriate and transfer sums of money within the budget line items. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes by majority. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our special town meeting. I will accept a motion to dissolve and adjourn our special town meeting. The second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, we will now go back to, it passes. We now will go back to our annual town meeting. Please stay with us. We should be able to get through these if we all stick to the agenda. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would stay with us, please. These are important financial articles, and we do need to get through these and get through the budget. I would like to offer the courtesy to the Upper Cape Regional and take their budget up as they do have to come from out of town. And it's a courtesy that we normally extend to Upper Cape. So let's go to Article number 7. May I have a motion, please, for Article 7?
I move that the town raise and appropriate $2,996,227.00 as its share of the operating and capital costs of the Upper Cape Regional Vocational Technical High for the fiscal year July 1, 2013 through June 30th, 2014.
Second. I have a second. Second. To speak to Article 7, Superintendent.
Good evening. Robert Dutch, Superintendent, Upper Cape Cod Regional. Madam Moderator. The budget that you see before you represents a 1.62% increase over last year. In totality, it's $190,000 in increase. What I wanted to take the opportunity to do this evening is help you understand how that budget is created, but more importantly, how the assessment for the town of Wareham is generated. The assessment is based on student enrollment at Upper Cape Tech from the town of Wareham, as well as the total enrollment in the town of Wareham for all of their students, and the percentage that Upper Cape Tech represents. Your assessment has gone up $400,000. Our budget has only gone up $192,000. The reason for this difference is that there are 26 more students at Upper Cape Tech this year, but there are also 150 fewer students in the Wareham Public Schools overall. So as you look at the percentage of your Chapter 70 funds that Upper Cape of your local contribution, that Upper Cape represents, we now represent a much larger percentage than we had previously. Had Wareham not lost students, other than the additional students to Upper Cape Tech, the difference in your increase in assessment would have been $16,000. So the difference is purely related, not to our budget, but more importantly to the number of students that are enrolled both in Upper Cape Tech and in the town of Wareham. So it's important that you understand that. If you look over the last year compared to this year, and your minimum contribution as a town, it's gone down by $726,000 because of the decrease in enrollment. Upper Cape Tech's portion of your local contribution has gone up by $157,000, again, because of the students. So that's where you're seeing that large discrepancy. A couple of other points that I wanted to make. As you look at cost per pupil, while it does cost more in general to send a student to a vocational technical high school because of student-to-teacher ratios, which are mandated by the state, as well as the cost of the equipment that our students use. The actual cost to Wareham per student that's coming to Upper Cape Tech is $11,000, $11,021. The cost to educate a student in Wareham in your own schools is $12,291. So when you look at the value that you're receiving, certainly you are getting value. Other considerations included in our budget are those components of a municipal revenue like snow removal, health insurance, building maintenance, building insurance. What I would say to you is that Upper Cape has certainly been a good steward of what you've given us, both the physical plant. If you've been up to see the school, you can see that as a 40-plus-year-old building, it's very well maintained. Additionally, we've returned over $1.1 million of excess and deficiency back to the towns in the last 6 years. Finally, I'd like you to keep in mind, in your backyard, as a part of Wareham, you have one of the top 3 technical schools here. And to not fund that would certainly be an unreasonable decision for the students of Wareham, and it certainly is a benefit within this district to have Upper Cape Tech. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 0-2-2.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 9-0-0.
Anything to be said on question 7, on Article 7 on my right?
Yes, Madam Moderator, Cliff Sylvia, Precinct 1. This is, I don't know quite how to put this, procedural or, because this is not the number that's in our budget. So in order to take action on Article 7, it would seem to me that we would automatically be out of balance on Article 6. So I don't know if this is a problem, but I feel that the numbers are not the same that on the budget that is proposed here this evening. And what? Am I wrong? If I'm in error, I'll sit down.
Well, we're not on Article 6.
No, I understand that.
I see that you're raising a point.
But if we vote on this right now, Article 6 will be out of balance. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
I'm getting an answer of no.
This is no. No.
To answer the question, Mr. McDonald?
If you look on page 4 of 5, under Upper Cape Vocational Tech School, it's the exact same number.
Okay, then I'm mistaken.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 7? Not seeing anyone standing, I now will call for the vote on Article 7. The motion is before you that the town raise and appropriate $2,996,227 and no cents. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes by a majority. Madam Clerk? Article 13. Article 13, may I have a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move that the town vote to approve the general GL Chapter 44, subsection 53E and a half, revolving funds as printed as, well, it's duplication.
I think that's as printed as error. It should be as printed in the finance.
As printed in the Finance Committee continued 2013 annual Springtown meeting warrant report, amended by deleting the Board of Health line item.
Do I have a second?
Second.
To speak to Article 13?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. These are the revolving funds that we ask for every year to be funded. The reason that it's being amended by deleting the Board of Health line item is that in the previous town meeting, we had accepted a Board of Health revolving account. Now, we've already accepted that one, and if we accepted it in here, in this motion, we basically have two revolving funds of the same. So we're not promoting to do away with that revolving fund, we're just making sure that it's not doubly counted. The rest of the revolving funds are the Council on Aging, further transportation, and recreation has been down to $1. Recycling in the amount of $50,000. We have the shellfish. Transportation for $210,000, that's the Council on Aging. COA activities, $50,000. Library services, $30,000. And Council on Aging senior adult daycare, $50,000. And again, this is not money being appropriated to these departments. These are revolving funds, and the amount that we are establishing is the ceiling, so they cannot go over that amount. It does not mean that they have those funds in there or that we're trying to give them that amount. It's simply establishing the revolving fund and the ceiling. Thank you.
I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 301.
I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 800. The Finance Committee recommends favorable action on this article. The amounts listed by account represent the maximum amount that may be spent on the services named. Expenditures within these accounts are restricted to the user fees collected.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 13? Seeing no one standing, I will call for the vote. This requires a majority vote. I will call for the vote on Article 13, that the town vote to approve the general laws, Chapter 44, Section 53.5 revolving funds, as printed in the Finance Committee Annual Springtown Meeting Warrant Report. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 14. May I have a motion on Article 14?
I move that $397,000 in appropriation to pay costs for purchasing print and/or digital textbooks, additional school technology infrastructure, and all costs incidental or related thereto. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow $397,000 under GLC 44, paragraph 7, subparagraph 9, or any other enabling authority. That the Board of Selectmen is authorized to contract for and expend any federal or state aid available for the project, and that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project.
Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Wareham School Committee has taken out of its budget request the funds for textbooks and technology. Approximately $355,000 for the textbooks, $42,000 for the technology. I had requested the Board of Selectmen put this article in for town meeting because there's two reasons. One, I believe we need to fund our schools, have the books for the students, and I believe that it's combined with our protection, one of the most important departments that there is. We are able to actually borrow for these textbooks, and it gives us the ability to pay that off over 5 years. If we had to fund $397,000 for textbooks in our budget this year, it would have meant approximately $397,000 worth of salary layoffs, and then the associated approximately 36% of unemployment on top of that. So you would have been looking at closer to $500,000. I ask that we support this budget. We've put it in our line items under the debt to borrow for it. So we would be appropriating for it. And I ask that you support this article for the students to have textbooks and the technology in order to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 301.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 500. In support of that, the new curriculum required for the high school math and elementary literacy programs are major unfunded mandated costs that must be met during our current school year. Our aging technology inventory needs a major investment to ensure our continued accreditation in technology education. This article authorizes the payment of this current year's burdens over a multi-year period to avoid personal reductions and would be needed to cover the mandated one-time expense solely in this year's budget.
Thank you. Anything further to be said on my left?
There's that. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Margaret Ishihara, Precinct 3. I think I might have heard the answer to this question as I was coming down. So it's going to be paid out over 5 years. What would be is it just that number divided by 5? And is that amount, whatever the first year's amount to pay the borrowing back, is that already in the school department budget that we'll be considering later in this meeting, hopefully?
It would be under a fixed cost, under our debt principal and interest. So it'd be over 5 years. So you'd spread the payment out over the 5 years, and it's simple interest. I believe, I don't know the exact amount, but we've been running between 2 and 3% for the interest rates.
Thank you.
Is there anything further to be said on Article 14? To my left?
Yes, Donna Ashley, Precinct 6. The school department is near and dear to my heart. I still serve on the school council of the high school, and I know the struggles that they have been through. The education of our children is extremely, extremely important in this day and age. Without a high school diploma, and one that's going to take you to college and wherever you need to go, we are taking our kids and putting them at an extreme disadvantage. I know that it's very hard. This seems like an excellent way to be able to get the technology the high school here needs. You know, we heard the tech school talking about how they're getting more of our students. Part of it is because our students need what they don't necessarily have. We need to give them what we have. My son was raised in school here from kindergarten through grade 12, and actually just graduated college. I have to get that one out. But now I've embarrassed the deputy moderator. I'm in trouble, but that's okay. It's a mother's prerogative. We need to support the schools so that the schools can help our children be able to get jobs, help our community, and stay in Wareham to better the town.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 14? Seeing no one standing, I now will call for, am I right?
On this article here, I just stand to say this, and I'll be very brief. This is a loan that we're going to borrow money against, and we're going to pay back over 5 years. I have no issue with technology. As a matter of fact, if Mr. Sullivan was saying to us that 100% of this money was being used that way, I could go along with this. However, I want to remind people that this is to buy books that when they're delivered to the school department, they're really not relevant anymore. I would support 100% of the money going to technology today so that we could provide some electronic things for kids. But buying a book today, and 5 years from now, its shelf life is useless, and we're still paying the dollar amount plus interest. And then 3 years from now, we got a new superintendent, and she may like to have different books. So we're spending this money for 5 years, and the books won't survive 5 years and be relevant. They may still be around, but I just don't think they're relevant. I would hope that we really focus on this because we should be spending the money on technology. Thank you.
Am I right?
Dr. Rabinovich from District 3. I raise in favor of this. The money is not for the traditional textbook as you think of it. Today's model of buying books has been reversed. You now get the digital book is what you pay for, and they give us the hardbound for free. And the updates come with the digital textbooks. So that's the way we are going for the high school math program. The literacy at the elementary school, the children still need books to touch as well as computers and so forth. So we are doing as much with digital textbooks and the infrastructure so we can be eventually all digital and not all paper textbooks on this.
On my left?
Yes, Madam Moderator, Cliff Sylvia, Precinct 1. I too rise in favor of Article 14, but I'd just like to make a couple of points. First of all is the fact that in terms of the shelf life of our books, if you take a look at our allocation for textbooks over the last 10 years, you see that the shelf life of our books is very, very great because we're still using books that we bought 10 and 15 years ago. So the point is that we need to update our books, we need to update our technology, and this, the main point that I'm trying to make is the fact that probably probably in a long, long time, we've had a strategy where all the boards have come together and for the most part, without being unanimous, but for the most part, gotten concession on a budget proposal. So I think that doing this over a 5-year period and updating our textbooks and updating our technology infrastructure is not only a good idea, I think it's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 14? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote. This does require a 2/3 vote. I will try for a unanimous vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously by 2/3 vote.
Madam Moderator,
Yes?
I move to take Article 6 out of order and move it up to in front.
Thank you. Under the rules of Division 1, Article 2, Town Meeting, if the Board of Selectmen certifies to the moderator that we have financial articles that are of a nature to warrant early action in town meeting, they can be exempt from the lottery, and I will agree to accept that we move the budget article before us as of now. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will go to the budget article, which is Article 6. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate $50,522,995 transfer from available funds. $688,000 is described in the Town of Wareham FY14 budget breakdown to defray charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, and to provide for a reserve fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2013 and ending June 30th, 2014.
Thank you. Mrs. Martin, just so that we're clear for the tape, that it's $50,522,995 is your motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Do I have a second? To speak to the article?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is our second bite of the apple of the budget, if you will. At the last town meeting, we tabled these articles, and the Board of Selectmen, with the school committee, as well as with the Finance Committee, we all worked together to come up with a budget. In finding a way to satisfy the deficit, we took an approach where it was split percentage-wise. The resulting is probably what is the result of every good bargain, is that none of us are satisfied, but we understand what we have to do. I would ask that you consider the amount of work put into this budget. We know that there's certain departments and, for lack of a better term, that will be hurt funding-wise, but we ask that you consider what thought has been put into this, and that we all feel that this is the best budget going forward for FY14. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action, 3-0-1.
May I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 5-0.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as we traditionally do, I will go through each line item of the expense side of the budget. If you want to ask a question, I would ask you to holler hold, and we will hold and come back to that line item. On the expense side, town meeting wages, town meeting expenses, selectmen wages, selectmen's expenses, town administrator wages, town administrator expenses, Finance Committee, Reserve Fund, town accountant wages. Did I hear something? No. Town accountant expenses, audit, assessors wages, assessors expenses, revaluation expense, treasurer wages, treasurer expenses, general services wages, general services expenses, legal services, personal services wages, personnel services expenses, personnel director, information management technology wages, information management technology expenses, information management technology communications, town clerk wages, town clerk expenses, elections and registrations wages, elections and registrations expenses, town planning wages, town planning expenses, conservation board expenses, planning board expenses, Board of Appeals expenses, sick leave bonus wages, police wages, police expenses, capital, inspectional services wages, inspectional services expenses, animal control wages, animal control expenses, shellfish harbor master wages, shellfish harbor master expenses, herring agent, municipal maintenance and public buildings wages, municipal maintenance and public buildings, snow and ice wages, snow and ice expenses, streetlights general, recycling wages, recycling expenses, Board of Health wages, Board of Health expenses, counseling on aging wages, counseling on aging expenses, Commission on Disabilities, library wages, library expenses, Historical District Commission, Historical Commission, net school spending, non-net school spending, school capital, debt principal, debt interest long-term, debt interest short-term, middle school debt, community health services, revenue deficits, regional landfill, Serpent assessment, retirement contribution including LIUNA. Okay, so LIUNA is in a separate line. LIUNA, workers' compensation, town insurance general liability, unemployment, medical insurance, life insurance, FICA, county and state assessments, veterans assessments, snow and ice, and the 99-02 overlay. We have 1, 2, 3 polls. I will now ask for a vote and take a vote on the line items that have not been held. It requires a majority vote. On my left?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. You went a little too fast for me at health insurance, medical insurance rather. Could we have a hold on that, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So I will call for a vote on all of the line items that were not asked to be held. Requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All of the line items that were not held passed by a majority. So our first hold line was police wages. State your point.
Now that you've just approved every other line except the holes,
if someone were to successfully make a change to a hole, it can only come out of those hold accounts? Is that what you just did?
That's correct, and what would happen is the town administrator would have to go back and look at the budget, and then in the fall, which is why we have fall town meeting.
Only in the hole?
Only in the
items?
holes.
So, if there was only one hole, what would happen? That's a valid point. You just approved every line.
We approved
except
every
for the
other
holes.
line.
So
As
if
a
there's
ma-
only one hole and that's successfully changed, where do you have the offset?
As a moderator, I cannot ask that people compensate if they wanted to change a line item in the budget. The moderator cannot ask that somebody compensate and take from another line item. That is per court ruling. So what happens is if someone has a hold on a line item and they decide to make an amendment to it, what would happen is then the town administrator, after town meeting, would have to take a look at the overall budget. And this is why we have town meeting in the fall, is to come back and make any adjustments to the budget that we need to make.
Just a point of information.
Point of information?
So we could leave here tonight with an unbalanced budget.
Yes. Gentleman on my left.
Frank DeFelice, 53 Mackey Way. I'd just like to ask a couple questions on the wages. I wonder if you could tell me what the chief of police gross wages before all the benefits he's got.
To answer the question?
One moment.
Do you want approximate or exact?
Approximate's good enough.
132,000.
Are you talking about the Quinn bill too?
Quinn bill would add an additional 32,000. His
So-
wages are 132. The Quinn bill is an incentive.
And who's paying the Quinn bill?
The town pays the Quinn bill.
Oh, okay, so the town wages are, I guess you gave me it wrong at the beginning. The complete town wages is roughly?
Roughly $164,000.
All right, one other question. Do they allow him a vehicle to go and pay for his gas to go to North Andover and back?
I believe that's
Well,
a
that's part of the
that's
wages.
it's a personnel issue.
No, that's part of the wages.
It's a personnel issue. Those are,
There you
those
go
are
again.
contractual benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Next hold we had was on snow and ice.
Dave Walton, District 3. There was a flyer handed out about snow removal. The budget right now is the same as it was a couple of months ago without any reductions. So is there going to be a reduction? Is the 89 miles of roads that are unacceptable or unaccepted going to now be without snow removal?
The first part to the question is, you do not reduce the snow and ice budget. You can't legally. If you go down, if you lessen it to what it was the year before, you can no longer legally go into deficit. So that's why we bring it up by a minimum amount every year. However, it is illegal without the town meeting's acceptance of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section C, and Section 6D for the town to plow private or unaccepted ways. So we would not be doing that.
Okay, through you, Madam Moderator. So basically, we've been breaking the law, and many towns in Massachusetts have been breaking the law for many years without any punishment. I just want to say something. I'm speaking for people that live on those 89 miles of unaccepted roads. Speaking for myself, my family has been taxpaying in this town for 70 years. For 50 of those 70 years, not only real estate tax, but personal property tax, so that's even more so. And during that time, the one thing that we got was snow removal. now that's being taken from us. So all I ask is, not being a smart aleck, I don't mean to be that way, but what am I getting from my taxes? There's going to be no snow removal. I think it'll be rather difficult for mail delivery. I don't know whose bill, if for emergency service, for an ambulance or a fire engine or police, and in the middle of a snowstorm without removal. I think the whole thing is asking an awful lot of the taxpayers who do very little complaining and happily pay their taxes, but return now basically nothing in return. Thank you very much.
Hi. Am I right?
Madam Moderator, Bob Russo, Precinct 2. Through you, I guess, to the town administrator. There are a lot of private roads in this community where people pay their own cost for the roads. I live in one of those communities, I believe. I'd like to ask the town administrator, what is the legal responsibility of the town of Wareham if there is a crisis, a medical crisis, or be it any kind of a crisis in a neighborhood during a crisis, be it a hurricane, be it a snowstorm, and the town has not provided for the safety of that community, and ambulances and other emergency vehicles cannot get down there to assist the citizens of this town. Is there a legal liability that this town has?
To answer the question, I believe town council will answer that from a legal perspective.
Madam Moderator, through the previous speaker, there are just certain questions that I prefer that I, as the town's attorney, answer rather than having
I understand that.
officials deposed, if you will. The cold legal answer, as opposed to what the policy answer might be, is that if there's a disaster on any road, the town does not have a legal obligation to go out and cure the disaster. So, and I'm just saying this to the record, because it's a cold answer. If someone wants to sue the town for not getting a fire truck out soon enough, God forbid an ambulance doesn't get out soon enough, think of any range of truly unfortunate and undesirable consequences. The town is not liable for those consequences. Now, as to what the town's policy in dealing with those sorts of events, I will gladly defer to the policy making officials. But in terms of defending a lawsuit, Chapter 258A, Section 10 provides what's known as a discretionary function exemption from tort liability. It's one of the few areas of the law where sovereign immunity, which means you can't sue the sovereign, in this case the town, sovereign immunity still exists. Okay, that's the cold legal answer. I know that's not reassuring, but I'm just putting it out there that if somebody sues the town, you're going to see an affirmative defense based on 258A, Section 10.
May I follow through, Madam Moderator? I know I like these cold legal answers. Does anybody who's established these policies have an idea as to how many citizens in this town live on private or unaccepted roads at this point? When you pass a policy that could impact hundreds, maybe several thousand citizens, do we know how many citizens in this town are being impacted by this?
To answer the question, if you choose to.
We don't know, but it's not a policy. It's actually a state law.
Just the last comment. It seems to me that several years ago, when this issue did come up about unaccepted roads, it was stated at a town meeting, and I don't know who said it, so I could be totally wrong, that the town had a liability in terms of protecting the citizens in a serious emergency, and if emergency vehicles could not get down those streets and care for those citizens, we were putting ourselves in a very serious liability. Now, the town attorney has told me something different, undoubtedly is correct, but anything like that occurs, I'm sure it would end up in the court of law big time. And again, it'd be another lawsuit that the town would be involved in.
The other, the next hold to speak to snow and ice.
Yes, please. Michelle Langford, District 4. how do you find out if your street is not accepted? And my next question is, can we come to the next fall meeting to get our streets accepted so we can get plowed? And what do we need to do that?
To answer the question.
The first part is we have it available on the town's website. You can also come to the administrator's office, and I believe we have a record of it in the town clerk's office as well. The next part.
Madam Moderator, with your permission, through you to Mrs. Langford. There are two mechanisms that are available to persons on the affected ways. Number one is obviously to petition for a street acceptance. Boiling it down, there are a couple of steps involved in that. The first step is approaching the Board of Selectmen and asking the Board of Selectmen to do what is known as laying out your road, establishing the meets and bounds and so forth. And typically the selectmen will refer a layout petition, which is what you would be doing, to other boards in town to survey the condition, to understand what the condition of the road is, to determine whether there are conservation issues and so forth. The Board of Selectmen hold what is known as a layout hearing. And if the Board of Selectmen is satisfied that the road is in a condition adequate to be laid out, they vote to lay the road out. At that point, having been laid out by the Board of Selectmen, the road comes to town meeting for acceptance of the layout. So technically town meeting isn't accepting the road, town meeting is accepting the selectmen's layout of the road, so you don't want to jump over the first step. The other alternative route, which I'll be very brief about, is set out in the handout that was out in front. It describes Chapter 40, Section 6C and 6D, which upon acceptance by the voters at a ballot question that's initiated by the voters, not by any town board, the town is authorized to do certain plowing or maintenance on private ways. But that's more fully set out. If you take a look at the Inspector General's letter that basically says if you don't do that route, it's illegal for you to snowplow, the process is all set out right there.
Okay, I just think we get very little for our tax dollars.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are on snow and ice removal, the line item expenses. I've allowed this to drift a little bit because I really felt that this was an issue that the town recently brought to light and that we, in fairness, should have a little bit of discussion, but I want to get back to the actual budget. So we are on snow and ice removal expenses, so if you have a question of that, on my left.
No, I'm sorry.
On my right?
Yes, I live in, Wendy Porter, District 2. I live in one of the private areas. Not only do we pay the highest taxes in this town, we also pay an association fee to the town to keep it private. That goes for the police, fire department, snow removal.
No.
Yes, I pay it every year. I haven't missed a payment in 13 years.
Do you have a specific question to the line
Yes.
item of salaries?
Now,
and
if I gotta
expenses?
pay this extra money, the harbor master's been sending people down there for our clamps and stuff. Is this really a gray law, or is this like a law? Because by living there, we should get cloud service. Or are we gonna get a tax rate to cover the snow removal to live in a private
Council will
area?
answer your question.
Madam Moderator, as to whether it's a black and white law or a gray law, I just respectfully refer you to the handout with the letter from the Inspector General, which enforces these laws. So the Inspector General's position is that this is not a gray law, but one of those real ones.
So again,
we get
we're
a tax
just-
rate to
we're-
cover private snow removal?
I'm sorry, I interrupted. What was your
Fair?
question?
Would we get a tax rate to cover this private snow removal?
No.
No.
So by living here, we gotta pay for the snow removal of the whole town, but we can't use it. That's what you're basically saying?
Private, public monies cannot be used for private ways to be plowed unless you've accepted these laws. So when you're asking the money that you pay into there, is it coming back to plow your way? No, it's not. And if you can call my office, I'd like to know what association is collecting monies for the town to do stuff for it, because I'm a little concerned that somebody's taking you for a ride.
No, we've done really well for ourselves. It's just, I feel I'm sure not the only private person living on a private road in this town that has to pay for the town to get plowed when we get through.
Thank you. Do you have any further questions on the snow and ice expense account? We'll move on to library wages. Someone asked for a hold on library wages. Am I right?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Roger Vicari, and I'm speaking as a member of the Wareham Library Board of Trustees. We understand that revenue in Wareham is down, so that money for all town services, whether to fund our schools, our police department, our library, they're all down. We realize that the library is one service among many taking the necessary cuts, but we want you all to be aware of the consequences. We want you to realize what library services are at risk. On the budget allocated, we can pay salaries to 3 1/4 persons. These are the director, the children's librarian, a librarian in charge of processing all books and other semi-technical issues, and the sometimes services of a library assistant. If we were functioning in a smaller, more compact building, our reduced personnel could serve the public adequately and with a staff of just 3 people. In a facility of that size and layout of the Wareham Public Library cannot adequately service this site, even without the always present issues of unexpected illnesses or employee vacation days to be aware of. All efforts to imagine reconfiguring the use of the main library, such as sectioning parts off, moving book stacks or computers to make it more compact on a temporary basis, and therefore controllable by the 3 or even 2 librarians, have not been successful. Sad to say, with the budget we are offered, beginning 1 July, we cannot open the building on Marion Road. We can, however, open Spinney in Onset because Spinney is privately funded through this year and until July of 2014. If we face the same dire financial situation next year and future years, we'll be in even worse trouble. If we are forced to use Spinney as our only library, we could open it 6 days a week.
10 seconds.
We turn the meeting there over to a computer center and bring over a few other computers. I'm sure many of you know that we have people in the library every day reading newspapers, using computers, searching homework assignments, and none of that's going to be done. We're trying to make some moves.
Time.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching the hour of 10 o'clock. I would greatly appreciate, and I think the rest of the body would appreciate, if someone would like to make a motion that we go beyond the hour of 10. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more articles. We could complete the budget in all 5 articles and not have to come back tomorrow evening, if that would be something that the body would so entertain. I need to have a motion by the Finance Committee on the record so that the tape can pick it up. Mrs. Donahue?
Madam Moderator, I move that we continue the meeting past the hour of 10 to continue the business of town meeting.
Do I have a second? We have a motion before us to continue our town meeting beyond the hour of 10 o'clock to complete the remainder of our town meeting articles. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. We are on medical insurance.
Point of order.
State your point.
I'd like to refer to the previous, the library.
We already moved beyond that. Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Flaherty.
Through you to the previous speaker in front of the library trustees, I just want to know if I heard him correctly that if the budget passes as presented, that the regular Wareham Free Library won't be open and that the Spinney will be open in its place, or is that just a possibility, or is that reality?
To answer the question.
Madam Moderator, with the funds provided by the town, that is correct. We have asked the other supporting foundations of the library, the private fundraising, if they could come up with all of the $90,000 needed to open the main library for 3 days instead of current 5. But $90,000 is a lot of money for a private fundraising, and we don't know what the answer to that is yet. But if they're not able to come up with a goodly amount of that amount, then we're not going to be able to open the library on the 1st of July.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On to medical insurance. On my left?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Bill Heaney, Precinct 1. My question on medical insurance is, since 2012, it's between 2012 and 2013, it went up $1.6 million, and then from 2013 to 2014, it's looking like it'll go up another $1 million. Exactly what, if anything, is the town doing to curtail these increases in the future? Or to actually reduce it?
We worked with the employees through coalition bargaining and have changed the split from 75-25 in 2014 to 70-30, and then for the 5 years after that going down to 67.5, 32.5, which will save the town approximately $4.4 million.
$4.4 million in 2014?
2014, if we had not done this, it would have been higher by close to $500,000.
So you saved 500 and it still went up $1 million?
Correct.
Okay, so what else are you going to do?
We're going to budget properly. This is the first year that I feel that that account has been properly budgeted. In 2012, the $4.1 million represented a $1.4 million reduction due to a healthcare holiday. In FY12, and looking at it, the $5.7 million does not fully represent it because dental was not represented in there for $300,000. However, we've been able to recoup that through the grant employees are going to offset roughly that amount. So this year, FY14, we are budgeting properly. If we had been properly budgeting, our annual increases are in the area of 6 to 7%, which, while great, a large amount, if you're talking 700,000, it would be 420,000. It's not $1 million, and that's what we should be seeing going forward.
Well, what my concern is the town side of government has gone down 400,000. The school department has just about broken even from 13 to 14, and this, pardon my language here, but elephant in the room, nobody seems to be paying attention to. And at this rate, in about 2015 or 2016, we won't have employees, we'll just have health coverage. I think we need to do more, I guess is my point.
I do understand the perspective. I do take for umbrage, I should say, that we're not paying attention to it. Going to the employees when the collective bargaining agreements have gone through with 0 raises for 2 years and reducing their health costs, which will cost them roughly $1,000 a year if they're on a family plan, is doing something. We are also looking into leaving self-funding and going into such groups as the Mayflower Group and just watching this better. But for beyond that, you know, unless I'm starting Biggest Loser Wareham, we're having tough times really finding alternatives.
Madam Moderator, can I ask a question about the budget in total? It's just one question. It won't take long.
State your question and I'll, yeah.
Okay. My question, I guess, is to the town administrator as well, through you, Madam Moderator. And it's what incentive does all of the department heads have to live within this budget for 2014?
I will accept your question. To answer the question, should you choose?
I should probably just give you a yes or no on this one, and I would say realistically, besides reprimands, there would be no other incentive except that they're professionals.
Okay, so are you prepared to reprimand if somebody goes over budget? I mean, this is a tight budget. It's going to be hard to live within this budget. And is this the point that management in the town has reached? That if you go over the budget, there'll be reprimands?
If somebody buys a golden cow, they'll be reprimanded. If there's things beyond the scope of what we theoretically should be budgeting for, such as retirements, such as having to pay somebody to be sick, and we need to fill those slots in order for public safety, I would say we would look at that a little more closely than just a sheer reprimand on it. But you're right, this budget is the tightest budget that we've probably seen. And I don't anticipate us having anything better in the next few years.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that we have gone through the line items. We held the line items police wages, the snow and ice expenses, the library wagers, and medical insurance. I now will accept a motion from the Finance Committee to accept those line items in the budget as presented in the Finance Committee report.
Just for those specific line items?
Just make a motion that we accept those. We accepted all the others, so.
I make a motion we accept the line items that were held.
Thank you. I have a second. All those in favor of the police wagers, snow and ice expenses, library wages, and medical insurance, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It passes by a majority. I would like, just for the record, to take a vote on the overall final line item of the budget as presented in your handout from the Finance Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
Can I request a quorum count?
Article number 9. May I have a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate $680,976 to the Emergency Medical Services Salaries and Wages account, $189,469 to the EMS General Expense account, and $80,000 to the EMS Capital account. And further, to authorize $950,445 in estimated receipts of the EMS to be used to offset said appropriation in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, Section 53E.
Have a second? Is there anything to be said on Article 9? May I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action 3-0-1.
May I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action 8-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article 9? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote on Article 9. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article 19. May I have a motion on Article 19?
Madam Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer $150,000 from the school transportation revolving account to fund the school bus capital purchase project.
May I have a second? To speak to Article 19? May I have a vote and recommendation of the Board of the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action, 3-0-1.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted 5-0-0, favorable action.
Thank you. Is there anything to be said on Article 19? Seeing no one standing, I will now call for a vote on Article 19. It requires a majority vote. The motion is before you that the town vote to transfer $150,000 from school transportation revolving account. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. We don't have 4. 8, 11, and 16. Article 11. May I have a motion on Article 11?
Madam Moderator, I move to approve this article as printed in the Finance Committee continued 2013 Annual Spring Town Meeting Warrant Report.
May I have a second? To speak to the article? Seeing no one, may I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen?
Selectmen voted favorable action, 4-0-0.
May I have the vote recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action, 8-0-0.
To speak to Article 11, seeing no one, I will call for a vote on Article 11. This calls for a majority vote. The motion before you is to approve the article as printed in the Finance Committee Annual Springtown Meeting Warrant Report. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. We have 2 more to go. One, 8? Okay. Article 8.
Madam Moderator, I move that the sum of $6,956,450 be appropriated for the purpose of funding the town's FY 2014 Water Pollution Control Enterprise Fund budget, and to meet such appropriation that $6,160,344 be raised from current year revenues by the Water Pollution Control Facility, and that $796,098 be transferred from the retained earnings account.
Do I have a second? To speak to Article 8? See no one. I have the vote of the Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen voted favorable action, 3-0-1.
May I have the vote and recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee voted favorable action, 8-0-0.
Thank you. Is there anything further to be said on Article number 8? Seeing no one standing, I will call for a vote on Article 8. It requires a majority vote. The motion before you is that the sum of $6,956,450 be appropriated for the purpose of funding the town's FY 2014 water pollution control, as is before you with the rest of the motion. It requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the continued annual town meeting. I will now entertain a motion to dissolve the town meeting and adjourn. A motion to dissolve the town meeting and adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for coming out and staying and taking care of the town's business.